let us all do we can to build a better future.
Let's get started with our first segment. So before we play this YouTube video, there is an article from Bloomberg. Now, I want to play the video first, but the title of this article is Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Allies Move to Court Establishment, Not Fight It. So again, it's very curious that we're seeing this. But before we go over the article, I want to pull up this video. It's being shared a little bit on social media, but it's showing constituents knocking on Democratic lawmakers' doors, asking them to fight for Medicare for all. We cannot forget the impact of force to vote. Now, I know there's going to be pushback. We'll say, well, force to vote wasn't done right. Well, as far as I'm concerned, force to vote got the conversation get started of how come the richest country in the world cannot provide single-payer health care to its citizens while every other country has figured out a way to do it.
Because America can't do anything. That's what the squad has told us. So we're like, oh.
All right. With that being said, let's play this first video and really just get an idea of what's happening here. Let's show it, FaZe.
We asked you in December and January to use your power that you do have to force a floor vote in the House of Representatives for a single.
Are they talking to a brick wall?
System, and you refuse to do that.
A brick door.
You're not talking and taking these issues directly to Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, or Chuck Schumer, and pressuring them in public to give those dead and dying a voice. You're tweeting at us, and you're not even in your office. Our demand is that you pass Medicare for all immediately.
Alicia Francis!
Alicia Francis!
Daniel Denoyers!
Daniel Denoyers! Carol Munns!
Carol Munns!
Kelvin Reed!
Kelvin Reed!
I'm a constituent, and I wanted to talk to Representative Malliotakis about Medicare for All.
Can I ask why you're filming me and who you are?
We're a group called For the People, and we're concerned about Medicare for All because so many Americans don't have health insurance. My mother died from my health insurance.
Okay.
She had cancer and she couldn't afford health care.
Elizabeth Wiley!
Elizabeth
Wiley! Yanel Ramirez!
Yanel Ramirez!
Kelvin Reed!
Kelvin Reed!
Teresa Twist!
Teresa Twist!
Do you believe in the teachings of Jesus? Because he clearly said in Matthew chapter 25, verse 40, the king will say, quote, I tell you the truth, when you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you were doing it to me. Every American you have let die and suffer in poverty and pain due to your legislative neglect is an action you've taken against Jesus himself. Our demand is that you pass Medicare for all immediately.
Pause it right here. I want to pause it right here. Everyone, you can check out the full video. Again, that was just like the first 2 minutes of it. But I need to let everyone understand that.
I think that people need the context for that.
People need to understand what we're seeing here. What we're seeing is we're seeing activists and organizers knock on. These are specifically New York House representatives in the U.S. House, and what they're asking is, we need you to put Medicare for all on the floor vote, on the floor for a vote. And the thing is, so far, you know, what do we see normally on social media? Now, on the one hand, I do like, and I want to be very careful as I say this, I do like that we see these politicians tweet it out. But if it's just words and there's no statement behind it, you're not answering people's questions. You're not answering people's concerns. Well, what are you going to do to fight for Medicare for all? And we're seeing more and more people wake up to the fact that these politicians are tweeting all the stuff we want to hear, but when it comes down to action, getting it done, the opportunity to really get it passed was for force to vote way earlier this year. But sadly, that's not the case. So let's get talking about this article.
And really quick, I just wanted to make a point that I think the most important point of that video, at least to me, is that this is a group of people that are trying to convince congressmen and women to fight for Medicare for all. And if you notice, the first person that they talked to that they needed to have convinced is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And I think that's a very important thing because we saw the second person didn't even care.
Yeah, that was
but
like a secretary.
AOC is on the exact same list in these activists' minds as the people that don't care. And I think that's a very important thing to remember from that clip.
So let's actually talk about how that video clip kind of relates to this article from Bloomberg. Now, again, there's a lot of things to take away from this. Again, this is an article from Bloomberg, but it is kind of shining a light on how AOC has been fumbling a little bit. Well, maybe that's a little bit of a stretch. How she has kind of not followed through with a lot of her progressive.
I was going to go the opposite direction and say she's been fumbling quite a bit.
Yes, quietly. So leading progressives like AOC had a choice after they won the election in 2018 and expand their ranks in 2020. Challenge Democratic leaders from the sidelines or...
I was trying to help you out.
Or get in the game. Now their decision to play by Congress rules is giving them clout in a government unified Democrat control with President Joe Biden. Members of Representative Ocasio-Cortez's so-called squad are taking leadership roles in the House and building experience on Capitol Hill, turning them into not just ideological purists, but also strategic legislators. They're gently pushing a bolder Democratic strategy and meeting regularly with White House aides, bringing liberal dreams like a $15 federal minimum wage and permanent child tax credit within reach. Now, that $15 minimum wage didn't happen because Joe Manchin and the 7 other U.S. senators in the Democratic Party gave that a thumbs down. Rather than starting a rival group within the Democratic Party, far-left members are joining and taking leadership positions in the 95-member Congressional Progressive Caucus that's been around for 3 decades. Minnesota Representative Ilhan Omar, also elected in 2018, now leads the CPC's vote counting team. This is a different approach than Tea Party Republicans took after they were elected in 2010 at the midpoint of the first Obama term. Instead, they challenged GOP leadership, spurned the existing conservative Republican study committee to start the Freedom Caucus, and draw a starker ideological line. Democratic Mondaire Jones, a newly elected representative from New York, who joined the Progressive Caucus vote counting team, said focusing on getting gettable policies while building consensus for bolder moves is an explicit strategy. We can get victorious. We should be concentrating our energies in those places, Jones said in an interview. For example, lowering the age of Medicare eligibility over getting a floor vote for Medicare for all. Since there isn't currently enough support in the House to pass the more comprehensive universal health program progressives would like to see.
It's so funny that it's, of course, Bloomberg's writing this article.
Yeah.
And Bloomberg's making like, oh, this is great. Look at them. They're being pragmatic. They're doing so much more by doing so much less. They're being realistic by not doing anything. I think the takeaway I'm getting from this specifically is that the fact that Bloomberg is writing nice things about AOC in this specific way is the reason to worry. Because... They seem to be happy with her, and so we shouldn't be.
Right, and so there's a little bit more into this article, but I find it interesting how they're vowing to continue to push for the $15 minimum wage, even though that $15 minimum wage was shot down in the first coronavirus relief package. And now, with this infrastructure bill that's being presented, I think it's very important for all of us to remember and to hear this, and that is Joe Manchin is still the obstacle that the Democrats have to face. It's not some Republican lawmaker. And yes, it's to be expected that Republican lawmakers will vote this down, but I think we already know that. But for this situation, you would expect that the Democrats, especially the progressives in the House, to be more vocal, to be more aggressive, to stand up. And AOC should be the one leading the charge. But we're not seeing that. And again, what is wrong with a force to vote for Medicare for all? It would shine a light on just how heartless these Republican and Democratic lawmakers truly are. Now, I could yell and scream and curse at AOC for not following through on this, but at the same time, too, I'm disappointed because she should be handling this. And I want to read just this last paragraph in the article. Trump's single term exposed the deficiencies in the ways the Democratic establishment does and does not advocate for big structural solutions that the American people understand the need for and urgently need, Jones said. The party as a whole, he said, must take affirmative case for electing Democrats beyond simply being different from Donald Trump and his Republican allies in Congress. And see, that's the issue with Trump, is that he's left such PTSD with a lot of progressives and liberals.
It's like self-induced PTSD.
You know, when you see something like this, we have to understand that You can't use him as your scapegoat, and the Democrats do have to follow through with their promises, but we're not seeing any follow through. And the very fact that you have a father with his kid knocking on AOC's door for Medicare for all, it wasn't too long ago, she was the one knocking on Crowley's door saying, hey, let's get something done with Medicare for all. And there's a big difference between the 2018 AOC and what we're seeing now. Yes. And I get that Washington, D.C. is one big swamp bubble, that it's one disgusting pit, but she has 12.6 million followers on social media. You're telling me that she cannot organize or rally a 12 or million? How about this? I'm going to just give a low number, but it's a high number. You're telling me you can't rally a 1 million person march in Washington, D.C. for Medicare for all, AOC?
Well, maybe not right this moment she can't, if that's... There's probably better pandemic ways
probably
she can make that happen.
Or use it at, how about this? Maybe an online forum about Medicare for all.
That'd be nice.
With her followers.
I'd like that. That'd be nice.
Maybe that can be done. I mean, at this point, after seeing that video, and again, you could check out this article and that video in the show notes in the description box below. But AOC, you ran on Medicare for all and trying to court and play nice with the Democrats. It wasn't too long ago in the early 90s where a certain person named Nancy Pelosi was also an advocate for Medicare for all until eventually somebody paid her to tell her to forget.
Yeah, so this is where we're at with AOC. I don't like that we have to keep covering her, but cover her we have to do because she is still a very, very well-known person, a very well-known congresswoman who has a huge amount of potential. She's always had a lot of potential, but she's never really acted on it. When we asked, I think very reasonably, for a force to vote to happen because it made logical sense to try and do something when you had leverage. I mean, it just makes sense to do something when you have leverage. I mean, let's be real. AOC not only cast everyone that felt that away as if we were nothing, but she actually attacked people that were in charge, mainly Jimmy Dore, calling him violent.
And even getting in a Twitter argument with Justin Jackson.
And talking down to him to some degree where he had to get back at her. But her entire thing's like, oh, Jimmy Dore is yelling at me. He's terrible, but it's the thing that I always talk about in America. It's like you can, like, we take Cuomo's entire thing again with that nursing home. You can kill or put in motion a plan that leads to the deaths of thousands of Americans.
15,000.
And no one cares. You have sex with the wrong people at the wrong time. All of a sudden, everyone cares. And I'm not trying to minimize that last one, but my point is that every congressperson, every senator who is not passing Medicare for all is, with the power to do so, because they are the power brokers, is killing someone in a quite literal way.
Yeah.
Because if you have Medicare... 500,000 people go bankrupt every year because they can't pay their medical bills. About, 75,000 people outside the pandemic time die from not having medical coverage.
Yep.
That's a number that you can make lower, and they're choosing not to because they have pre-done deals. They're allied with the insurance company. They don't want to act in this way. They want to go over here. AOC has gone from our hope of someone who at least... I thought that there were two options with her. She either helps get enough people, a squad large enough to do something, or she's a wrench in the gears of doing bad things. And when she started, she was sitting in Nancy Pelosi's office, and I was like, "That's nice. That's something. That's showing. That's using her Twitter presence. It's going on TV and calling things out." And now it seems that she's refusing to talk to the people that got her into power. Yourself, you guys. She is refusing to go on independent media ever since she got elected, even though she got on every show on the left that was around, that was large. She got on every show. I think she was on Jimmy Dore's show a dozen times?
She was on Jimmy
And then
Dore's.
she immediately ghosted him the second she got in. And I mean, you can keep going through and through. I can keep giving examples. AOC is not the person that we elected. She is very quickly becoming... the second Nancy Pelosi, really bad at legislating, really good at raising money.
Yeah. And the thing is, there's going to be a breaking point. And again, if you watch that video in its full entirety, all these people are asking for, what the American people are asking for is, we need Medicare for all. There's no debate about it anymore. There's no conversation
don't worry,
about it.
AOC has the best health care that the U.S. provides, so she probably doesn't notice.
That's
It's not happening to her anymore.
Yes, and I do.
She's like, I'm here to get you health care. Get you health care.
Yeah, and let's not forget that she recently did tweet after almost 10 days of not tweeting out. But had to deal with something with I think COVID death certificates or something like that.
She's like, you don't get health care for running this, but you can get some money for your funeral because we didn't cover your health care costs. My bad.
I know, richest country in the world. And look, it's disappointing to see this, and I would expect more. But this article from Bloomberg, it's writing a piece that's trying to be critical, but at the same time too praising her for playing with the system.
Of course,
it's Bloomberg.
Of course, that article is happy for her. They're the insiders. They're like, yes, this troublemaker is ours.
Yep.